Hello and welcome to the Post to Post podcast. It is December 10th, and this is podcast number 26, I think. It's a Sunday, and we're happy to be back. Thank you guys for joining and clicking on this video or downloading this on your phone or podcatcher, however you listen. We appreciate it.
You're happy to be back. I'm just happy to be alive.
Yeah, because last week you turned the big 58.
58. And the Montreal Canadiens on the same day turned 108.
Yeah, you guys share the same birthday.
We do. 50 years apart exactly.
That's
There's something special about
strange
that.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit to talk about. I'll just go through the topics just quickly. I did this before and then I stopped doing it, but I'll do it today. We're going to talk about Ottawa and the contract stuff that's going on there.
All right.
We're going to talk about the Vegas tweet, the Carolina relocation, New York Islanders arena situation, Calgary Flames arena situation, Jayden Schwartz, Milestones, as we usually do. We're going to talk about Ovechkin, talk about the streaks, which we usually do, Paul Romanuk and Gary Galley, some commercials and stuff, and then I have some stuff about Gary Bettman.
Nice.
And then, we're going to review the games on your list, and I'm sure you have other stuff, too, to talk about. So
Yeah, a little bit about the not the Russian decision, but the IOC decision on Russia's participation in the Olympics.
Right.
I think that impacts on things that we care about. And there's some other, of all things, I know it's a post-to-post podcast and it's mostly hockey, but we venture into other areas sometimes. I was just totally captivated by the Army-Navy football game yesterday, and I want to talk about that.
yeah, we'll definitely chat about that later. So as usual, I'll go with my list, and then we'll go with your list.
Sure thing.
So Ottawa is the first thing on my list, and Ottawa Senators have asked its players with no trade clauses to submit the teams that they would not be traded to. So these are players like Karlsson, who has a no trade clause, but
They have partial no trade clause, right?
partial no trade clause, and people are worried because they think that Eugene Melnyk or the team in general wants Karlsson out because of what he said a couple of weeks ago when he said he's going to get paid what he deserves, whether that's in Ottawa or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And Melnyk said that he's not going to get a hometown discount, and or I shouldn't say that.
Maybe a hometown bonus.
Something like that. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
The Ottawa fans are worried that Karlsson is on his way out the door because they just asked what teams he didn't want to get traded to because his contract's coming up. If he's going to get paid $12 or $13 million, how much room does that leave for other people on the team to come in and help the team when one player is making $13 or $14 million? It's a pretty, you're shooting yourself in the foot almost cap wise. And especially with his play in the last this season, I guess, basically.
Yeah, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, so
Really?
it's tough, but I think that it's just a negotiation tactic. I think it's a fear tactic towards the team, and what I mean by that is they're letting the team know without actually saying it that they're looking to make trades because they're not doing well. I don't think it's directed specifically at Karlsson. I think it's directed as a team in general to be like, hey, wake up or you're going somewhere else. And maybe the people on the players on the Ottawa Senators want to go somewhere else. Well, they want to get traded.
Maybe so. And if you look at the performance of the team this year, especially the last few weeks, I can see people getting itchy, wanting to go to some place that might offer them an opportunity to succeed. And succeed in the NHL is only one thing.
Yeah.
And it's not like winning a President's Trophy.
No, and it's not Washington Capitals.
No.
Seasonal. Yeah.
And there's another dynamic here, too. In the case of Karlsson, we have to wonder, all of the hockey-interested people on the planet, have to wonder if Karlsson is at the peak of his value right now. Because right now he would probably get offered the kind of money that he earned last year. Not that he got the money last year, but he demonstrated that he deserves that kind of money last year. He hasn't demonstrated it this year. And I don't know if he's going to demonstrate it the remainder of this year or into the future.
So I think his contract is up in the 2018, 2019. I think he's got 2 years left or something.
1 or 2, yeah.
I wonder if he plays the way he's playing right now the rest of this season, and he plays the same way the rest of next season. Do you think that brings down his overall value?
I think it's already down, and I think it would be down even farther.
Oh, really?
Well, if you were in charge of the St. Louis Blues and Karlsson walked in the door, and you're the coach, and you had now owned him, where would you start him? Where would you place him on the St. Louis D?
As he's playing right now?
Yeah. He'd be third line D.
No, I wouldn't put him that low.
I would.
I'd put him second pair. But I'd be watching him like a hawk for sure.
Yeah.
Because he's really not playing that well.
He's not. He's not. And we speculated a while ago, maybe more than once, about what's behind that. Maybe an injury we don't know of, or an incomplete recovery from his foot injury that he had last year. I don't know.
He's definitely a streaky player, though. I remember watching him around the 60 to 70% mark of last year, and he changed a little bit. He was pretty defensively reliable, and then that moment came, and the giveaways just started coming and coming. Like, he would just give away the puck and give away the puck and give away the puck, and then about 3 weeks before the season ended, he locked it up. He's really good at holding onto the puck and not giving it away. And now, at this season, he's kind of back to that giveaway game again. And I hope that he can turn it around. He's a bit streaky.
And last year, when he did have the giveaway problems, at that point he still had a bit of an offensive upside, which he doesn't seem to have.
Not many people were talking about it because of that offensive upside.
Yeah.
But it doesn't exist this year so far, so it's tough.
Now, you know this story better than I do, but I believe they've asked all the players who have that in their contract to disclose the teams they would not want to go to, not just Karlsson, right?
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. It's a fear tactic for the entire team,
right?
Because they're enlisting fear in every single person that you could get traded, and you could get traded soon because this team sucks.
But
right now.
Those players though, like, can you sit there if you're Mark Stone or someone and say, "Oh, please don't trade me"? I think the players that could get traded are maybe players that would be happy to see a new scenery. I don't know.
I'm not really sure.
Is anyone in love with playing in Ottawa? Anybody? And I'm not saying that I know of.
That's an interesting question. I think Anderson loves playing in Ottawa.
I think you're right. Ottawa has a more emotional attachment for him for a lot of very good reasons. And I'm sure there are other players who are in the same boat.
Right.
But good grief. I think being traded away from Ottawa, which is quickly becoming a bottom feeder in the standings, and almost is certainly not going to make the playoffs.
Well, they're 1-8-1 in their last 10 games.
Yeah.
That's it's not going to get it done.
The amount of teams you have to crawl over to get to that third spot in the Atlantic, I don't think is surmountable.
They're going to have to go on some kind of run or streak.
And have the other teams tank at the same time. I don't think that can happen.
It's going to be tough for sure, but you never know what could happen.
Yeah.
Because Calgary did it last year.
If I were a player on the Pittsburgh Penguins trying to three-peat for the Stanley Cup and things were going half decent and there was a fear that I might get traded, I wouldn't want to get traded in that sense because I'm already where I want to be. I don't think of a player in Ottawa who's where he wants to be.
You think they're just getting tired of the 1-3-1 structured system and they just want to play hockey instead of play strictly defensive hockey 90% of the time?
Well, that definitely could be it. I don't watch enough of it and analyze the intricacies that much, but the more independent and creative players, they want to play hockey in a more free-form way, right?
If you look at Mark Stone, who is a pretty dynamic goal scorer, playing on the most structured defensive team in the league, you could argue, if he was on a team like Winnipeg or Tampa Bay, how many more goals could he have?
He'd be flying.
Even Karlsson himself, if he was played on St. Louis or something, like you said. I wonder if he would be more offensively gifted on a different team. It'd be interesting.
You have to ask the question.
If I was in charge of the Ottawa Senators, I would trade Karlsson because I wouldn't want that contract. He's an amazing player, but he's just one player, and you need at least 18 to win a cup.
And if you give him what everyone right now thinks he's worth, which is north of 10 for the next round of contract, then how do you surround him with equally gifted people to make it a good go?
That's the problem. And
even with an expanded cap.
And it's not just the $14 million for 3 years. He's going to want duration on the contract as well. It's going to be probably at least 8 years. I think maybe is the cap 8 years for contracts, or 10? I can't remember.
I think there is a maximum. I think it's 8 at the most.
There's definitely a maximum.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if he gets $14 million for 8 years, I mean, that's just... And that's insanity, in my opinion. But whatever. That's
over $1/10 billion.
That's crazy. Yeah, so I guess that concludes our Ottawa talk. We'll move on to the Vegas tweet. And for the people who don't know, the Vegas Golden Knights Twitter is a very fun place to be. If you're not following it, you should be. It's very funny. It's very active. It's sarcastic. It's witty. It's everything that you want it to be. But they have gotten into some trouble this season. Twice, actually. This is the second time. The first time, I can't remember what it was about, but they actually ended up deleting a tweet and then apologizing for it. And it happened again this week because the Vegas Golden Knights were playing Nashville, and the Vegas Twitter tweeted out this. The other team scored, and reporters covering their team started clapping with a sideways face. And that's a big no-no in the press world. You know, you're supposed to be unbiased. Even if you're covering your local team, or if you're the press, you're supposed to be completely unbiased for the most part, unless you work for the team. Mm. And these people don't work for the Nashville Predators; they're the press. And Jim Diamond of the Associated Press, who is was one of the reporters there, not saying that he was the one clapping, but he was a part of that. He demanded an apology from the Golden Knights Twitter page, or the franchise. And they did. They deleted the tweet and they apologized via Twitter. They said something like, "We're sorry that we offended," or "We're sorry that the Nashville press was offended by our remarks," or something like that. We know that they have lots of pride, or I don't know, something like that. But
so the Nashville market sports reporters did cheer, apparently.
Yes.
So Vegas just reported that they cheered. Mm-hmm. And then expressed an opinion that wasn't cricket, and that perhaps they shouldn't have.
I don't know if they were all Nashville-based reporters.
I don't know how you apologize for that if it's all the truth.
I think it's baloney.
You're allowed to have an opinion, and you're allowed to say what goes on. Now, maybe they broke some kind of code that's in the press box that says you don't talk about anything else in the press box that you see from other press people.
I think that's part of it, yeah. But I just don't care. I mean, like, people get so offended by the stupidest blank
these days.
It's really frustrating, and it's frustrating because they apologize because they had to, because this is the world we live in now.
Yeah. So Nashville saw someone's pants fall down, and they pointed to it and laughed. And the person whose pants fell down is insulted because they didn't do their belt up that day.
I guess.
But it's Nashville's fault.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like that time the person got Captain Crunch, and they cut the roof of their mouth on the Captain Crunch and sued for like millions of dollars and won against the company because they cut the roof of their mouth on the cereal. Like, what?
America is a very, what they call, litigious society. Litigious means, at the drop of a hat, you grab a lawyer and away you go.
Yeah.
I used to tell an anecdote when I taught paralegals back in my previous life about a woman, I believe she was in Texas, and she just bought a microwave. And one day she was taking her little toy poodle out for a walk and got caught in the rain. And when she got home, knowing that microwaves are magical things, she put the dog in the microwave to dry it off. And, of course, we know what happened after that.
Yeah.
She sued, apparently, now this is anecdotal, but she apparently sued the microwave company because it didn't say anywhere in the instructions that you could not use the microwave to dry your pets.
And she won.
Apparently so.
Wow.
There are others that are even funnier than that.
I don't want to look at the United States legal system with derision, or I think that's the right word.
Yeah, it is.
But it is comical, some of the stuff.
It is comical, and in Canada, we're not caught up to that yet. But we're not clean here either.
No, we're not.
Not by a long shot. In Canada, we have evolved a judicial system that doesn't reward craziness to the same degree. But we have our share of craziness.
Oh, absolutely.
We have government apologies giving millions of dollars to people that were done wrong in the past. And I won't go any deeper than that because I'll just get angry.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. So the Carolina situation, there's been lots of talk of them potentially relocating because of attendance, because of the arena situation. But what was that?
I don't know. Everything seems to still be working.
Weird.
We just heard a noise, folks.
Oh, I forgot to plug my laptop in.
And thank goodness it wasn't the same kind of crash we had a couple of podcasts ago where the roof came down.
This is going to be awkward for the podcast, but I do need to plug in my laptop or it will die.
Right.
So you can.
Would you like me to talk about anything?
Yeah, you entertain the people for the next 15 seconds.
All right. Well, the St. Louis sale finally did go through, and it was sold to
St. Louis.
Or Carolina, thanks. He's able to correct me even when he's not on task. You're going to knock. Anyway, the Carolina sale did go through, and one of the stipulations in the sale was that the team was to remain in Raleigh for a minimum of 7 years.
Yeah, because the arena lease ends in 2024.
Exactly.
So the team can't move before then. Well, technically the team can move before then, but it's going to be so expensive for the new owner to break the lease deal that it wouldn't be financially worth it.
Okay.
Because he's, like you said, we talked about this a couple of podcasts ago. He's from Texas. He probably wants to move the team, but it's good that the NHL made more stipulations that he couldn't move the team until the arena lease was done. Because I personally don't want to see the Carolina Hurricanes leave the city. They have a history. They won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
I think they should stay there. They have an established franchise. They've got established fans. Yeah, attendance is down and stuff. But I think that's a lot to do with the success of the team in the past 10 years rather than anything else. They haven't been a competitive team, unfortunately.
No.
They're just starting to come around now. So in 10 years from now, they could be in Tampa's situation.
That's right.
Who knows? So I don't think we should give up on them too soon.
All right.
The Islanders, and this is a frustrating one for me because just talking about the Islanders relocating is there's nothing. It's just so frustrating. So they're not allowed to go back to the Coliseum because Bettman doesn't want them back there. The NHL doesn't want them back there. It's an old building,
and it's been renovated since then to have even fewer fans.
Yeah,
they couldn't even do it.
And that rule-wise, it doesn't support enough it doesn't house enough fans to be legally allowed to hold an NHL game or whatever.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to play in the Barclays Center long-term. It's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid situation right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to get an arena built in Belmont Park. But there's issues there. There's other people competing for that land because they want to build a soccer stadium or something there, or some kind of other thing.
Okay.
And I don't know what the Islanders are going to do if they can't get that arena in Belmont Park or another location, because you can't play over in Manhattan at Madison Square Garden because mainly because of the owners, I think, and secondly, it's the busiest arena probably in the world.
You'd never get 41 nights there.
No, you'd never.
No.
The only benefit would be for the fans watching the Rangers and the Islanders play so much there because they'd each play each other 4 times.
More, maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah,
They're in the same division, right? Same.
I think they play.
There's at least 4, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do. There's rumors that I could move to Hartford. They can move to Quebec City. No, the Islanders can't move anywhere. They're such a historic team. They've got multiple Stanley Cups. They've got such an important history to the NHL. The rivalry that they have with certain teams like Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay and the Rangers, New Jersey. Man, they've got some of the most important history in the league.
Yeah.
Even though they're not in the original 6. They've been around a long time. So I'd really hate for the Islanders to move, unfortunately.
Well, I hope the Belmont thing does go through. There are challenges, as you said. I think there's enough room in that vacant land across from the racetrack that you could probably put a soccer stadium and a hockey arena
Oh,
there.
probably.
It is served by train, but not subway. So transportation is going to be one of the biggest hurdles, and it's even farther out the island than Uniondale was.
Yeah.
So it's that much farther away from Queens, which is, I think, the main catch area for the fan base. But it's not horribly far away. It's not farther away, really, than Canada is from downtown Ottawa,
Right.
or than Sunrise is from downtown Miami, or than Glendale is from downtown Phoenix. I think it's doable. And I think there's enough people in the metropolitan area, and particularly on the island itself, to put 16, 17, 18,000 people in an arena 41 nights a year, that it should go, and I really hope it does. And then there's that other opportunity, which is on the northern coast of the island, up near the abandoned, I'm trying to think of the name
right,
of it
right,
again.
yeah. I remember you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's a place where they're looking at possible baseball relocation there. Well, it's where they've put the new Mets stadium is in that same area.
Yeah, it's close to LaGuardia, right?
Quite close to
Yeah.
LaGuardia, yeah.
What do you think the Rangers are going to do in 20 years when the MSG has been around for 70? Or longer than that, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. They're renovating a lot of the train
But
infrastructure underneath Penn Station right now, and I don't think it's going to affect the hockey arena per se. And they've just done a lot of renovations inside MSG.
they
But,
have.
but it's going to be an old building.
It was built in like 68 or 60 or
68,
something
yeah.
like that.
Well, 67, I think, actually. So it's already 50 plus years old. And in 20 more years, like you say, 70 years, and so many things will have changed by then. There will be new ways of cooling the ice, probably, and new ways of lighting, and new ways of doing all kinds of things that won't retrofit in a place like
I
that.
think you can only renovate something like that so many times
Yeah.
before you just need to, you know what. And when that time comes, there is nowhere else for the Rangers to play. Like, they'd have to play in New Jersey at the Prudential Center or something. Or I really don't know, because they'd probably tear the Madison Square Garden down and just rebuild it new or something. I don't really know. I'm not an expert, obviously, but I'm not an engineer. But it'll be a tough time for the Rangers in 20 years from now, probably.
And the last big wide area of real estate that was really available on Manhattan, as far as I know, is now being developed. Residential, commercial, business in these train yards that are along the Hudson.
Right, on the Brooklyn side.
On the Jersey side, actually,
Oh.
the one I'm thinking of. It's along the Hudson River over around 12th, 11th Avenue, maybe around 35th, all the way up to 45th. That area where the High Line ends at the northern end of the High Line.
I thought they were putting up new buildings next to the Brooklyn Bridge to the south of the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, I think they always are.
I guess that's a good point.
Yeah, but that part of Manhattan's already filled, unless you bulldoze a whole, several blocks and tear them down, and that wouldn't be the first time that happened in Manhattan, that's for sure. But as far as vacant land, I think that's disappeared pretty well, unless you go way up into Parkland, up north of Harlem. That's not going to happen.
They'd have to build on Battery Park.
Battery Park City is, that's an option, because they dug up a lot of ground, when they made the World Trade Center back in the late 60s, early 70s. They had to put that ground somewhere. They dumped it all out in the Hudson and extended the size of Manhattan and built on it. That's where Casey Neistat lives and a whole bunch of other people in Battery Park City.
Yeah.
You never know.
You really never know. I mean, it's the biggest city in the world, I think, or close to it.
And in New York, when real estate is, $15 million a square foot or whatever the heck it is, it probably makes more sense to create a new island
Totally.
than it does to buy an existing piece.
And it's not easy, but it's not hard. And when you have that kind of money coming in, it's like whoever would do that, the city, I guess, would make a ton of money from extending.
Well, that's another thing, is the ton of money. The city currently has a deal with the Rangers that as long as they stay at MSG, they're forgiven the property tax.
Yes. Yeah.
And MSG Sports and Entertainment, I think, has that whole deal. Like the Knicks and the Rangers and everybody, that whole thing is living tax-free or tax-reduced, at least, for the foreseeable future. But the minute they pivot and go anywhere else, ding, ding.
Exactly. So we can segue over to the Calgary Flames arena situation. There's still talk going on, negotiations between the team and the city council and the mayor and everyone and their dog in Calgary. And it's a frustrating situation because the fans lose during this whole time because there's lots of worry. People are stressed when they shouldn't be necessarily have to be stressed, and it's all just a big negotiating tactic. The Calgary Flames aren't leaving Calgary. Like, I will delete this channel if the Calgary Flames leave Calgary.
Oh, don't say that.
I'm serious. Like, I'm almost serious. Like, they're not leaving. That's how confident I are. The NHL, Winnipeg just got a team back. There is no way that they're going to remove the Calgary Flames, A, a team with a Stanley Cup history, B, a team who has been around since the early 80s, C, a profitable team in the NHL, and that's all I got. But still.
And D, you just got a jersey of the Calgary Flames on it.
Heck yeah.
Well, the mayor that was against a sweetheart deal was reelected.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing myself. As much as I want hockey to stay in Calgary, I do sympathize with the citizens of Calgary who don't want to be on the hook to fund what is a billion-dollar enterprise.
Oh, I completely agree with that, yeah.
How they fix it, I don't know, but I think you're right. The end result, when it's all said and done, is that there's going to be a long-term hockey presence with the Flames in Calgary, no matter where they physically might be in town. It'll happen. They'll find a way to work it out. The Saddle Dome has a limited lifespan.
Yep.
I understand that. They'll go somewhere, but it won't be very far from where they are right now.
Brad Treliving is the GM of Calgary. His father, Jim Treliving, is a billionaire.
I met him at an airport one time in line. Had a real nice chat with him. Very nice man.
Hypothetically, if Jim Treliving acquired the Calgary Flames, do you think that would create a conflict of interest, that having his son as the GM and him as the owner?
Not at all.
I don't think so either.
Not at all. In fact, if you told me that Brad Treliving was just the front man for Jim and has been all along, I'm not saying that's happened, but if you told me that's what the case was, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, because Jim is too busy to run the team, but he's got the money, you know, so...
Jim Treliving's doing 1,000 other things that are making him money, so yeah, he doesn't have time to worry about.
And I think the owner of the Edmonton Oilers is, you know, in a similar situation where he, I think, wants to have the family inherit and move more into ownership of the Edmonton side. So I don't think that's odd at all.
Okay.
And, you know, the Molson family, it's a family business that owns Montreal, so that'd be fine.
Same in Buffalo, I believe.
Yeah. It would only be a conflict of interest, I think, if there was family involvement in more than one team. You know, if they also owned, you know, a piece of some other team, I think that's troubling.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a bit of news here to transition out of all this arena talk. Jayden Schwartz, who is on a career season, an absolute tear with St. Louis, he's out for 6 weeks with an ankle injury. Very devastating and unfortunate for the St. Louis Blues and their fans. That's a huge loss. Number one, because it stops a run of confidence that he had, because now he's going to come back and he's going to try. He has expectations to know what he has already done this year and can still do, and he might not be able to do it based on being away. Number one, being away from the game for so long. 6 weeks isn't long, but in hockey, 6 weeks is a long time. And then his ankle coming, is his ankle going to be the same when he gets back? So it's just as much emotional as it is physical.
And it may be a lot longer than 6 weeks. The official word with the NHL is re-evaluated in 6 weeks.
Yeah. So
that may be.
It sucks. It's a good thing that St. Louis has a good team, because losing him is a big loss. So and a big loss to my fantasy team as well. So
he is plus 23. He's the second highest in plus minus in the league right now.
I was about to say he's got to be up there. And who's number one? Is it a defenseman?
Number one is at plus 24, only one higher, and that's Braden Shen.
Really?
Yeah.
His line mate.
Yep.
I guess it makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah. Kind of like the Sedin brothers. Their stats track together.
Yeah. Moving on to milestones. This is something we've done the past 4 weeks. Do you know the milestones?
I don't, actually. Okay. I forgot to look them up.
So last week we talked about Marleau and Cam Ward. The week before that we talked about Marleau and Cam Ward. And the week before that we talked about Marleau and Cam Ward. So 4 weeks ago. And we're still going to talk about Marleau and Cam Ward. Marleau has 1099 of 1,100 points. Cam Ward has 299 of 300 wins. So that hasn't changed in a week.
Okay.
Not too much about Cam Ward because he's a backup goalie. He's not going to get a lot of starts. And when he does get a start, 50-50 shot that he gets a win, basically. Mm-hmm. So Marleau, what are you doing? 3 points in the last 4 weeks, not acceptable. Or 3 points, I think. Yeah. So I really hope that we don't have to talk about this again next week because that's 5 weeks. So I don't know what Toronto's going to do with Marleau, but
I know what they're going to do. They're going to pay him a lot of money.
Yeah, going to pay him $6.25 million or whatever he's making a year. Ovechkin is now 20th all-time in goal scorers in the NHL. For a guy who's played less than 1,000 games, like 971 or whatever it is, to be in 20th all-time goal scoring is incredibly impressive.
He's on an amazing pace. It's not Gretzky-like, but it might be number 2.
Well, actually,
it's all said and done.
It's funny that you say that because Ovechkin has a higher goals per game average than Wayne Gretzky.
Look at that.
Not by much. I have a trivia question for you.
Okay.
Who is the only other Russian player to have a better goals per game average than Alexander Ovechkin?
Better than Ovechkin. Goals per game.
Goals per game. Better.
Obviously, we're talking about someone who had a shorter but very active career.
They played at least 700 games, so not much less than Ovechkin.
Kovalev?
No. Good guess, though.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Any hints?
No. He wore number 10.
Oh. Pavel Bure?
Pavel Bure, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. I mean, if he didn't have the health issues and had to retire and stuff, it would be very, excuse me, it would be very interesting to see.
Is that right?
How many goals he would have up to this point. Yeah. It's really impressive. That blew me away when I saw that. I knew that Pavel Bure was an absolute rocket, but I didn't realize that he would have a better goals per game average than Ovechkin.
Ovechkin and Gretzky have such different games. Gretzky was a very finesse player, and he had protection back then in the days when you could have an enforcer. He had some protection around him, so if you beat up on Wayne, you got really hammered.
Yeah.
Ovechkin goes so hard. He uses up so much of his reserves, I think, every game. He doesn't take it. Well, the only time he takes a break is when he's skating back to the bench every shift.
Yeah.
But otherwise, he really goes hard.
Yeah.
And don't know if he has I'm hoping he does get to play for many, many more years to come. He's a young man. He's only, 30 or 31 years old?
I think he's like 31, yeah.
Yeah, so good for him.
And Gretzky wasn't a goal scorer. I mean, he was. He has the most goals in the NHL, but he was a playmaker first.
Yeah.
And so the two completely different games. But they each had their own office. Gretzky's office was behind the net, and Ovechkin's was on top of the circle there. So now moving on to streaks. For wins, the Los Angeles Kings are on an 8-game winning streak.
Something else.
I didn't know that. Like, I knew they were playing well, and I forgot their streak from last podcast, but I really didn't think that they'd go on an 8-game winning streak. They're really...
And when they were on a 7-game streak, which is before they just won, which is yesterday's game or last night's game,
great math there.
Thanks. It's Sunday morning.
Yeah.
The streak that they're on now, the streak that they were on, even when it was only 7, was the best in over 2 years, since October of 2015.
For the team?
For the whole team.
Oh, really?
So now that they're at 8, I don't know. I didn't see the new roll-up of that stat to see how far back you have to go before you find the last time that the Kings had 8 straight wins.
Interesting.
But they haven't had 7 since last October, or 2 Octobers ago.
That's good for them then.
Yep.
Tampa Bay has won 4. Not a surprise there. Vegas Golden Knights have won 4. Not really surprised there either, actually. Washington has won 4, which makes me happy, makes my prediction happy. St. Louis has won 3, and Philadelphia has won 3 in a row. Again, the seesaw effect. Lost 10, now they're on a 3-game winning streak. It can happen, seriously.
Yep.
That's why I tell Ottawa fans not to worry, because it can happen.
Well, they're at, in my little way I do the standings versus points versus games played, Philadelphia, despite the fact that they're last in their division, they have 29 points, which would put them about halfway up the Atlantic. And they're flat. They have 29 points and 29 games played, which is better than Buffalo, Ottawa, Florida, Detroit, and Montreal.
Yeah. It's crazy, really.
And for a team that's had such a bad run to still be in that kind of shape, like you say, it can still happen.
It can still happen. Calgary did it last year. They had a big talking to after their terrible loss against Montreal, and then they went on this big run and made the playoffs, and it's crazy. So if we talk about losses, the streaks, Dallas is on a 3-game losing streak. Again, the seesaw effect. Last week, I think Dallas was on the other side of this equation with four wins in a row. Now they've lost 3 in a row. Montreal has lost 3 in a row as well. New Jersey has lost 2 in a row. Vancouver's lost 2 in a row. Arizona's lost 3 in a row. And Ottawa's lost 4 in a row, 1-8-1 in their last 10. So.
Yeah, and lost badly. I think last night, we'll get to the scores, but they were shut out badly last night.
No, were they really shut out?
5-0.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay, next on my list is Paul Romanuk and Gary Galley.
Okay.
This is a conversation we've had not last week, but the week before in the podcast. And we watch all Canadians games.
Yep.
So we're stuck with Romanuk and Gary Galley. And they're not the worst announcers out there and play-by-play guys, but they're becoming very close to it. Because there's so many things that annoy us about what they do. We're actually, like I said, I'm done actually watching the games in English. Next week, or from now on, I'm going to be watching the games in French, a language that I don't understand. Yeah. So it's at the point where I'm so frustrated with them that I'm willing to watch a game that I love in a language that I don't understand, just so I don't have to listen to them. How bad is that?
Yeah,
it's frustrating, and it's just the little things, like when Gary Galley says, I have a quote here.
When he says anything.
Has a stick that's hard on the puck. What the hell does that mean? Seriously. I hate these little hockey sayings like that. It drives me nuts. It's active stick and active feet.
Active feet. And even some other things like support, puck support.
And gains the line.
Gains the line is terrible. But that's a John Bartlett thing. That's not a Romanuk thing. But
I think John Bartlett uses it way less than Romanuk. But so. Romanuk just goes ham on it. He just
Yeah, what we're stuck with on the weekend games, the National Hockey Night in Canada or Sportsnet broadcast, that's when we're stuck with Romanuk and Galley.
Yeah.
During the regional games, we get John Bartlett and typically Jason York or some other commentator. They're not bad.
Yeah.
I don't mind Bartlett. He has his things that he says that are slightly annoying. But at the same time, I grew up in the Foster Hewitt, Danny Gallivan era, and I'm so spoiled by really good, exciting broadcasters that this is just awful. And Gary Galley, as we said, or I said a few times last night, I think we both said it, whenever he talks, it is to only fill time and not to add anything of value.
It's just words. Like it's nothing.
Yeah, it's... Montreal's down 4-2 or 4-1. They really need to get a goal here. You think?
Yeah. And it's a lot of that.
It's so sad.
And they have this dynamic that isn't really shared by other announcers, where they'll stop calling the play completely for literally minutes at a time and just chat about stats or just go on and just words of stuff that doesn't even matter. Like, seriously, guys, call the game. Like, I'm not watching you for your personalities and to hear your stories and to stuff. Like, can you please just call the game? Because last night there was a point where I was organizing some of my hockey cards and I was watching it, but I was also listening as well when I wasn't looking, because I was looking down the hockey cards, and I couldn't do it because they weren't calling the game. It was very frustrating.
There was a point in the game, and off camera, because almost everything that happens interesting is off camera because of things we've already complained about in the past. But there was a point when the Montreal fans, I'm not sure if it was late in the second or early in the third, they suddenly started booing. Now, Montreal fans aren't strangers to booing. Right. They'll pull out the boo birds. Montreal could be ahead 6-1 in a game and have a bad power play and get booed off the ice almost by their own fans.
Yep.
But it was a sudden chorus of boos. So either a call was missed, or something serious like that happened on the ice that was obviously off camera because I was watching.
Right.
And I couldn't tell why they had started to boo. Meanwhile, Romanuk and Galley are talking about their latest plane trip or something from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And never identified what was the source of that. And that's totally unacceptable because, again, I want to be in the environment. I want to be in the game.
They're physically there. It's their job to tell us things that we can't see. And It's also their job to pronounce names right. That's literally their job, to pronounce names right. And Paul Romnuk cannot decide how to pronounce Alzner.
Yeah.
He literally switches back and forth
almost
in
every
the games.
time.
It's either Alzner or it's Alzner.
Yeah. He'll say Alzner, passing it to Ben, back to Alzner.
Yeah.
Over to Ben, back to Alzner. Like he literally does it with that kind of
that's almost a quote.
fluidity.
Seriously, it's insane. So it's so frustrating. And there was, just to pedal back a bit, there was a point last night where they were on this big ramble about something, and there was a penalty called against Edmonton, and the Edmonton player touched the puck, and there was a whistle blown. And neither of them knew why the whistle was blown because they were too busy talking and not watching the game. Like, this is the kind of stuff that...
They didn't even know which team had got the penalty, even though the whistle was blown when Edmonton touched the puck. And that's a dead giveaway, right?
Completely. Anyone who watches hockey would know. So frustrating.
So the Montreal, and we'll talk about the game specifically here very shortly, but at one point, near the end of it all, when it was not in doubt, the result was going to be what it was, I remember grabbing the remote and flipping over and finding the Winnipeg-Tampa game and switching to that briefly, and it was Bob Cole.
Yeah, Boob Cole.
And, all the times last year, and for previous years, going back as long as I can remember, complaining about Bob Cole.
And we did a lot.
A lot, because...
He never knew who was on the ice. He'd call people by different names. It was bad.
I'm sure he's still doing it, but... It was refreshing to find Bob Cole and listen to him for a few minutes last night.
I hate that we have to say that, but it's true, because at least he was calling the game.
He was calling the game. And, he was talking about what was happening on the ice. As you say, he wasn't always talking about players that were on the teams or on the rosters that night or even still alive, but he was at least thinking he was calling what was happening on the ice.
Yeah, and he may have been calling a game from 20 years ago in his head, but at least he was calling a game. So... and I think that's why we like Doc so much.
Doc is the man.
He's exciting. He has these little phrases and just inflections in his voice and stuff. It's just he's the man. But there's other announcers or play-by-play guys in the United States on Nesson and all these other channels who are terrible. And I don't like and who say stuff like hard stick on the puck and stuff and say stuff like that. As a person who didn't know anything about hockey and was trying to give the game a chance, and to hear stuff like that, like, what the hell does that mean? Mm-hmm. And I mean, I watch hockey and I'm still saying, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
So, they're not doing the fans any favors by saying those stupid little sayings. So.
Yeah. And we talk about whether announcers should be homers or not, because announcers, I guess, are journalists as well in a way. They're journalists, tell a story. That's the very definition of
They're not paid
journalism.
by the teams.
They're not, but they are integrated with the teams, a lot of them.
Oh, yeah.
They travel with the team.
They
travel live with the team. They're a fixture.
Yeah.
So I think even though the payroll might not work out that way, everything else still does. And I don't mind that. For instance, last night's game, it was, last night, Montreal versus Edmonton. Now, usually Edmonton's games are called by man X, let's say.
I don't know who calls them this year.
And Montreal's games are called by man Y, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
When they play each other on a Saturday night, I'd have no difficulty at all with Edmonton having its own person on the Edmonton channel calling the game, and Montreal's Danny Gallivan successor calling the Montreal side of the game.
As long as both feeds were available to us so we could choose.
Yes, that would be great.
And that'll never happen.
No, that'll never happen. But, with the system we have now, we can buy extra channels and get other cities.
True.
So it might be possible, but I don't have a problem with being happy when the team that you're traveling with does well, because you're speaking to the fan base of that team, and they want your team to be as favorably regarded as possible. So I don't have a journalistic, ethical issue with that. What I don't like is when it goes too far. Like the Toronto announcer that does the regional games, which we never see because we're not in the Toronto region, the Holy Mackinac thing.
Yeah.
I just cringe when I hear that.
He's really biased.
He's which is fine.
Same as Jack Edwards with Boston.
Oh yeah, and Jeanneret from Buffalo.
Yeah.
And I know there's people who've commented on your podcasts and on your videos. Talk about the announcers. Isn't Rick Jeanneret great? And if you ever do that show, I want to be away that day.
Yeah, I'm not doing that show.
Because if you can't say something nice about someone, don't say anything at all. So it would, for me, be 5 minutes of silence.
And there was the
Pittsburgh guy, slap me silly, Sydney, shave me with a rusty razor.
I think Jason and I talked about this in a podcast a few weeks ago. There was a play in the San Jose game against Boston, I think, and the San Jose announcers were really like uncomfortably biased. Like, it was just like, what did you honestly just say that? Like, you just embarrassed yourself. I don't know if it was San Jose or LA or someone, but it was someone out there. So there's lots of bias that goes around, but well, nothing we can do.
Well, sometimes I like that. For instance, when the Blue Jays would play during the regular season, you're stuck with Buck Martinez doing the games. And as much as I don't like Joe Buck, when they go to the playoffs and the national network picks it up, they put their own announcer in the seat instead, and Martinez becomes a color guy down on the field during during timeouts or breaks or whatever. And I actually like that better because finally we have someone who can pronounce all the vowels. So anyway, sorry about that.
Sticking with kind of TV and stuff, commercials. This is unhockey related, but I want to talk about it because it's my podcast. So we experienced something very interesting last night, and not only once but twice. Near the end of the first period, there was a whistle and our stoppage and play, the Montreal game, and they decided we decided to flip over to the Toronto-Pittsburgh game. So there's a commercial playing in the Montreal game, whatever, and then we switched. And as we switched to the Toronto-Pittsburgh game, the exact same commercial at, like, I don't want to say the exact same time, but I'm talking like 1 second apart or maybe less. The commercials were playing at the exact same time. It's as if whistles happened identically in the game, and they both went to commercial at the same time. Like, I've never been flipping back and forth to a game and seen the same commercials, like the same. I know the same commercials play on two different games in different networks, or the same network on different channels. That's expected, but at literally the same time, like, that's just a coincidence. And then we saw it again, like the next period or something like that, when we flip back over, like the same thing. It's like, how do they do it? Like, I don't get it. But
and I'm sure what happens is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, or Hockey Night in Canada itself, which is CBC plus Sportsnet, they get together and they sell blocks of commercials to their advertisers, and they say to Dodge, okay, you'll get commercial 1, Tim Hortons will get commercial 2, and Walmart will get commercial, or Canadian Tire will get commercial number 3 in the second TV timeout of the period. And no matter what game you're watching, that's what you get.
Yeah, totally.
And I think when they're doing the buy, they're doing a national buy. Occasionally there will be a regional commercial break that goes to, here in PEI, for watching the Toronto game, it'll be DL's Auto Body, which is, you must.
I don't think you'd be able to find on YouTube or anything.
It's unfortunate. It's probably the lamest, hokiest commercial you've ever seen.
But I know the son of the owner, and he's the nicest guy in the world.
Oh, I'm sure. I've had work done there, and in fact, the next thing I need there, whatever, if it's auto body related, that's where I'm going to go.
It's a fantastic place. They do great work. They're the nicest people in the world, but the commercial is terrible. Sorry.
Sorry, guys. Yeah. But I think that's what happens. So that's why occasionally, if the whistles both happen at the same time, the games start at the same time. It just can happen.
Coincidence. But
it was so blatant last night. It just happened so often. It was like, what?
But just to talk about some of the commercials, we've maybe added a few new companies or mute boycotts to our list. Canadian Tire. There's a Canadian Tire commercial where Buddy sings the Jingle Bells song in different words about what they have available. Number one, it's not funny. Number two, it's annoying as hell. And like, number three, there's no point of it. Like, it doesn't even make sense. It's just him singing. Like, there's no dynamics to it. There's no like story to it. It's just like him sitting in front of the camera singing on a piano.
It's so annoying. For our American listeners and viewers, Canadian Tire is a very large retailer here on this side of the border that sells not only tires and other automotive products, but other things, camping equipment, sleeping bags, cutlery, pots and pans, deep fryers.
You get your car fixed there.
Everything.
Tires, everything.
It's not unlike a Walmart, really. It's big enough.
Yep.
They can be as big as a Walmart.
Lots of sports equipment.
Yeah.
There.
I don't know what the equivalent would be in the U.S., but Canadian Tire's been around for a long, long time here in Canada, and they're a very full-service company. But their commercials over the years, I don't know if they've kept the same ad agency all the way through, but their commercials over the years have been some of my most annoying TV experiences of life.
Yeah, I agree. And admittedly, I don't shop a lot at Canadian Tire. And I don't think it's because of the commercials. I don't find myself there a lot.
Yeah.
So
they're such a large store that they're usually away from other stores. They're a standalone building, so it's not something you just walk over while you're there doing other things. There aren't usually any other stores really close by.
You have to specifically go for something at Canadian Tire.
5 or more years ago, the commercials all centered around this know-it-all neighbor that, you'd be doing something in your yard, and he'd come over, oh, you should have the new such and such. And like if I lived next to that neighbor, he'd be missing some teeth.
Yeah,
because
totally.
Every time I go to do a job outside, he's over there trying to persuade me that I'm doing it wrong because I don't have the such and such.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that wouldn't last long.
No, not at all. Another commercial was the 7-Eleven commercial. And you muted it a couple times. I can't even remember what it was about, but it was annoying.
I don't remember there being I remember muting a few.
There was multiple 7-Eleven commercials, but there was one specific one that was annoying. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I wrote it down because I knew it was, you muted it. And then the classic Ram commercial that we've already talked about.
Oh, yeah, that Dodge. Yeah. See ya.
I have something written on the back here. It's the last thing on my list.
Okay.
I want to talk about Gary Bettman and the commissioners, the history of commissioners.
Oh, okay.
So technically, Gary Bettman is the first commissioner in the NHL in '93, but before that, there were presidents. So the first president of the NHL was in 1917, and that was Frank Calder, and he was the president until 1943, so that's like 26 years. And then from 1943 to 1946, Red Dutton was the president for 3 years. 1946 to 1977, Clarence Campbell was the president for 31 years. 1977 to 1992, John Ziegler.
Ziegler, yeah.
Yeah, so that's 15 years. 1992 to 1993, Jill Stein, so he's just in there for 1 year. 1993 till now, which is, well, I'll say 2018 because Gary Bettman will still be the commissioner by the end of this year. 25 years. So it feels like Gary Bettman's been around for friggin' ever. But he is only the third longest tenured commissioner or president in the league.
That's interesting.
I thought that was interesting.
No, that's very interesting. I didn't know that.
And chances are he'll become second very soon because he's already at 25. He just needs one more year to tie 26.
And then 31's the record, right?
31's a record. And, I mean, he's not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere. A vote of confidence is a guarantee for him for the foreseeable future. He's paid by the NHL owners.
He just brought in an expansion team which made $500 million, and he's about to make the NHL $650 million more. So
the money keeps rolling in. That's what it's all about.
Yep. So he's going to be rewarded by more tenure. So
great. But I do hope someone convinces him to get off the stage during drafts and other announcements. Just go away.
Yeah, completely.
And have someone else be the spokesperson for the league, please.
He's such a weasel. He's not trustworthy at all. And that's what I meant by weasel. I didn't mean like physically a weasel. I meant he's not trustworthy.
But if I walked onto a used car lot.
Oh, God.
Okay. And the door opens and a Gary Bettman comes walking out over my way. You just took a shiver. I would, that's that's the feeling I get.
Yeah, totally.
From Gary Bettman. And it's nothing to do with his appearance or the way he talks or anything else. It's an intangible thing. He is very good at what he does. He's a salesman.
He is a salesman.
He's a lawyer.
Yep.
And he used to run the NBA before the NHL.
Yep.
So he's no stranger to this job. And I'm sure he's very good at doing what the owners want him to do.
He's a very smart guy.
Yeah. And he would be very good at doing what the car dealer owner wants him to do, which is come out and try to sell me a car.
Yep.
But I would want to have a shower
Yeah.
after I left the lot.
You'd feel dirty.
Especially if I ended up buying the damn car.
Yeah.
He did it again.
All right, that's all I got on my list. What do you got?
Well, I got some results from last night. We won't go through them in any great depth, but I just have the results and a few quick highlight mentions for some. St. Louis beat Detroit 6-1. What's wrong with Detroit?
I think they won. Who they beat? Winnipeg or someone earlier this week?
They did get a win. So this is they're now starting their new losing streak at one game. Braden Shen got his 15th goal of the year. There were 6 different scorers spread out amongst the St. Louis team, so that's really good for them. Boston, second win in a row with Tuukka Rask, 3-1 over the Islanders. Halak took the loss. Brad Marchand got his 11th goal in that game.
That was a huge win.
Very big win. Edmonton beat Montreal 6-2. We spent a lot of time with Montreal in the past. I don't intend to today, other than to say a few little tidbits here.
Carey Price lost in the game.
Carey Price was he was pulled, and he had to be pulled.
I'll just say it. He's the lackluster effort that he put in behind the net, and just he played like he did when he was injured, but didn't tell anyone he was injured. Mm-hmm. It looked like he didn't care. So
yeah, and all 4 goals that went in on him, I think he should have got.
Oh yeah, me too. Yep.
And they put in Niemi, and he was great.
Niemi was fantastic last night. That's a sentence I didn't think I'd ever say. But
yeah. Weber was -3. He was on the ice for all first 3 goals.
Same as Ben, I think.
Yeah. That's just not acceptable. And it's a game that Montreal had to win. When Boston wins and Toronto wins and you're fighting for that spot, that's a game you have to win because you're playing a team that's struggling. You're playing a team that head-to-head, talent-wise, overall, you can beat these guys.
And that's the thing about Montreal. They play well against teams that are good, and they play terrible against teams that are terrible.
Yeah. Last year was an even bigger case of that. It's just sad to see what's happening if you're a Montreal fan, as I am.
And the trend of 2 goals in a minute is continuing because I think they're up to 11 now this year. And the record's 14 for ever in the NHL.
The 12.
Oh, is it 12?
12. The record is 12. The worst team ever to let in multiple games with 2 goals within a minute is 12. And Montreal now is up to 10 or 11.
And we're only 30 games into the season.
Yeah. And it happened again last night. It happened quickly. The first time it happened, it wasn't actually within a minute. It was 1 minute and 13 seconds. Kira scored at 1:11, and then Lucic scored at 2:24 in the second. So just not quite within a minute. But in the third period, Clefbaum scored at 2:39, and Ovitu scored at 3:09. So that's only 30 seconds later.
Yeah.
There you go. But by then, the game was screwed anyway.
Yeah.
That Kyra, I think I'll say his name. I think it's correct. Close.
Interesting story.
Very interesting story. Last week I mentioned his name because he was on the score sheet from the game when I was doing this little report, and I hadn't heard of him, or if I had, I hadn't paid attention. And then he got 2 in the game last night against Montreal, and he was amazing. He's a really good player.
Is he the guy he's the third Indo-Canadian player to...
Yeah, he's from Surrey, BC, and he's the third Punjabi or South Asian Canadian to make it into the National Hockey League.
He had a great game.
The first was Robin. I see Bawa. I have my scribble is not very good. Do you know who the second one was? I'll give you some hints.
I don't want to sound racist because I don't know if this guy is actually of that ethnicity. Is it Nazem Kadri?
No, Nazem Kadri is of mostly West Asian descent, like he's Middle Eastern.
Okay.
Yeah, but not that far. But this guy played for the Montreal Canadiens not that long ago.
Oh, goodness. I have no idea.
And he had a very serious eye injury before he joined Montreal. He actually missed a lot of time with this eye injury, and his vision was never the same.
Zednik? No, it wasn't Zednik. No. I have no idea.
He was a fourth-line face-off specialist.
Oh, I can see him, but I can't.
Manny Malhotra.
Yeah, Malhotra. Yeah.
Yeah, So you know where he is now? He's an assistant coach or in the coaching system with Vancouver.
Really?
Yeah, because that's where he played a lot of his time.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's a great story because he did leave himself out there in the free agent market. No one picked him up,
Yeah.
but he did. He played some AHL a couple of years ago just to try to keep going. But now he's in behind the bench. So
good for him.
That's awesome. Yeah, but Montreal they really pooped the bed last night, shall I say? And they deserve to lose. They deserve the booze. And they've got 4 days off now to think about it.
Would you start Niemi or Price next?
I would start Lindgren.
Okay.
I give Price another, okay, Kerry, let's pretend you've got another injury again.
Yeah.
We'll send you off to a spa, and we'll bring Lindgren in as the number one, and then Niemi's there to back him up. Niemi played well enough to start, though. All kidding aside, I think I would start Niemi.
I'd start Price, and if he let in 2 soft goals, I'd put Niemi in, and then I'd start Niemi the next game.
Yeah. Winnipeg and Tampa Bay. That was maybe the most exciting game of the night.
2 high-flying teams.
Yeah. And it was really, really something. Tampa Bay ended up winning the game in overtime, 4-3. Vasilevsky got the win. It's their 4th in a row. Winnipeg, Hellebuck took the loss. The winning goal in overtime was Braden Point. That's his 12th of the year. Kucherov got another goal. He's up to 20.
Yep.
And Sergachev got a goal, and he's up to 7. So there you go. Kucherov, by the way, he's on pace to have 57 goals this year.
Whew. I don't think that's going to happen, but I mean, never know. I'm not saying it won't happen.
It looks difficult but he's got 20. So, Tampa Bay is just a little bit more through than 1/3 through the season.
Yep.
And if he keeps this pace up, he's going to have 57 goals. Elsewhere, Semyon Varlamov and Colorado beat Florida 7-3. Reimer took the loss. Nathan McKinnon got his 11th goal for Colorado. And have you seen the highlight of that goal?
No, I missed it.
Viewers, listeners, and Neil, you must, when this thing is over, go on to sports whatever and find the Nathan McKinnon goal.
Okay.
Where he skates through, I think you're only allowed to have 5 skaters on the ice. I'm sure he skates through 8 guys and walks in and scores. It's beautiful.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll go watch
very,
this
very
right after
nice.
this is over.
Okay. New Jersey and the New York Rangers played. Quite a tilt. 5-2 Rangers. King Henrik got another win. Zuccarello got 2 goals for 7 on the year. Columbus Blue Jackets beat Arizona 1-0.
Yeah.
Andy Ranta played a great game, but still ended up taking the loss. Bob got his 4th shutout of the year now, 35 saves, and Anderson and Panarin were on the score sheet. Anderson got the goal. Panarin got the assist. This is an interesting stat. That's a primary assist. Like, in other words,
Right.
He was the guy who passed to the goal scorer. That's the 6th consecutive goal Columbus has scored where Panarin has got the primary assist.
Wow.
6 primary assist goals in a row, and that is a record for consecutive primary assists that goes back to 2006.
I was going to say, that does not happen very often, so.
In the New Jersey game they played prior to that, where Columbus scored 5, I think they beat them 5-0. Panarin assisted all 5 goals as the primary assister.
No way.
So how cool is that?
Wow.
Toronto and Pittsburgh ended up in a pretty tight game at the end
Yeah.
of it all. It was 4-3 as how it ended. But Pittsburgh scored late with about 2 minutes left, a little too late. And ended up
Anderson
being
played
4-3.
really well, as he's done all year.
Yeah, he stole that one. And Casey DeSmith got the loss. Who? Jerry was pulled after the first period because he'd let in those 3
3 goals and 16 shots or something.
Yeah, so they pulled him and put Casey DeSmith in. So poor Casey, who actually shut things down for the next 2 periods. He only let in 1 goal. But they still ended up nailing him with the loss because Pittsburgh ended up scoring 3 goals. So the winning goal ended up being the one scored in Casey DeSmith. So if Pittsburgh hadn't scored that 3rd goal, Jerry would have got the loss.
Wow. Speaking of goaltenders, I don't want to interrupt you here, but there was rumors earlier, I believe from Elliot Friedman, that Edmonton was looking at Mrazek and Detroit. So we could potentially see a trade there in the next, maybe it's already happened, maybe today, maybe.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. But
Okay. Elsewhere, Calgary beat Vancouver 4-2 in the late game, and I didn't stay up to see that. Besser got another goal,
Yep.
15 on total. So even though Vancouver lost, it was a good night for Besser.
And they had the lead 2-1.
They did.
And they
2-1
blew
at the
it.
end of the second period.
Yeah.
Vancouver was leading that 2-1. And then Calgary came back to Chook, the guy who's had been such a discipline problem, scored twice in that game for a total of 6 on the year.
Calgary sure does have a lot of discipline because they came back against Edmonton in that game, almost won. They came back against Montreal, won the game. They came back against Vancouver, won that game. That's an important stat to have on the sheet. You can come back in games. So.
It's a huge, huge thing. They scored 3 goals in the third period. I don't think there's too many teams that have a third period performance like that. Vegas Golden Knights, 5. Dallas Stars, 3. In Dallas. That's the 4th win in a row.
Yeah, that's tough for Dallas.
Legacy got the win. Eric Holla got his 11th goal.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Jamie Benn got his 12th goal. And Bishop took the loss. So, good for Vegas.
Yeah.
They're on a roll again. Kings over Carolina, 3-2 in overtime. Kopitar and Toffoli each got goals. Kopitar is 16th. Toffoli is 14th. That's the 8th straight win for LA, as we talked about earlier. Scott Darling got the loss, and Jonathan Quick was in goal for the win. Aaron Dell.
Yep.
Shut the door on the Ottawa Senators, 5-0 for San Jose.
Aaron Dell's a good goalie.
He's a really good goalie.
His save percentage is good. His goals against average is good. He's had some losses that weren't necessarily his fault. He's a very good goalie, one of the best backups in the league. Yeah.
His goal against average, if you count goalies who've played as few as 11 games, which is what he's played, is 1.72.
That's
He's
pretty
the
good.
only goalie that's played a number of games with anything less than a 2. So
That's awesome.
He's lights out. So that was the scoreboard from last night. So a quick run through the standings using my plus-minus system that we talked about before.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Tampa Bay is 44 points now. They're plus 15. Toronto, 39 points and plus 9. So it just shows you Toronto's in second place in the Atlantic, and Tampa Bay is lights out. They're out of sight. Next is Boston, 32 points and plus 5, and then everybody else is in the minuses. Montreal minus 1, Detroit minus 2, Florida minus 3, Ottawa minus 3, and Buffalo minus 10.
Ouch.
Played 19 games, they have 19 points in 29 games.
Buffalo's not making the playoffs this year.
Safe bet.
Yeah.
In the Metropolitan, Columbus is back on top. 39 points and a plus 9. Washington, 37 points and a plus 7. The Devils, plus 7 as well, 36 points. The Islanders have 35 points and a plus 6. Pittsburgh, 35 points and a plus 4. And then underneath that, the Rangers, Carolina, and Philadelphia. And all except Philadelphia are in the plus range. In other words,
Wow.
they have more points than games played.
It's a strong division.
Very strong division. And they're going to get the 2 wild card spots right now.
Yeah.
I can't see that changing.
That's not going to change.
It's early still. But Central Division, St. Louis is now leading again. 42 points. They're a plus 12. Nashville close second, plus 11 with 40 points. Then it's Winnipeg. And they were leading for a while, but they've been passed. But plus 9, 39 points, still very respectable. Dallas, 33 points and a plus 3. Minnesota, 31 points and a plus 3. So they're actually tied in the plus-minus. Chicago is next, second to last. And Colorado is at 28 games played and 28 points. So they're flat. Nobody in the minuses in the Central. It looks like you're going to need about 13. Plus 13 by the end of the season to make the playoffs. A plus 13 gets you 95 points.
By the end of the playoffs?
End of the season,
Oh.
I meant to say. So if you've played 82 games and you're a plus 13, you've got about 95 points. That's probably enough to...
And that number fluctuates every year, but
Every
it's always
year's
around
different.
the same.
It's always around
accurate.
95, 96 points. So if you've got plus 13 now, and then you just play flat the rest of the year, you're probably getting in. And there's a few teams that are there, or almost there. In the Pacific, the Kings on top, 43 points and a plus 12. Vegas is next, 39 points and a plus 10. That's amazing. Then you've got San Jose, Calgary, Vancouver, Anaheim, Edmonton, and Arizona, minus 19 or minus 13 with 19 points. So the 2 worst teams in the league are tied, Buffalo and Arizona. Arizona being worse because they have the same amount of points, but they've played more games.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Stats leaders, Ovechkin's got 21 goals now. Next is Kucherov, and then Tavares, Monahan. Oh, I was going to ask you who was next, and I was going to give you a trivia question, and I forgot to.
I want a trivia question.
In points, who's leading points?
Stamkos?
Yes, 42. Who's next?
Kucherov?
Yes, 41. Who's next?
Gaudreau?
L.A.
Kopitar?
38. Wheeler's got 38. Gaudreau's down quite a ways. Well, not quite a ways, but he's below those guys. In plus minus, it's Schenn with 24, Schwartz with 23. Now, if you're not playing, there's no add and there's no subtract. So he'll stay at 23.
I guess that's
while
true.
Everybody else plays. So Schwartz may end up still being very much one of the leaders in the plus minus after his 6 weeks or 8 weeks or however long he's off with his ankle.
That's a good point, yeah.
And Drew Stafford, I think it is. No, is that? No, Anton Stralman is 21.
I was going to say Drew Stafford.
Yeah, sorry. Goals against average, we already talked about Arundel. He's done that, 1.72 on only 11 games, though. Of the goalies who've played more than 20 games, which is your real starters, Bobrovsky is next at 2.06, Quick 2.18, Vasilevsky 2.24, Corey Crawford 2.27. Malcolm Subban is next, playing 10 games, and he's at 2.33.
I'm not surprised he's played so well.
Yeah. And below Subban, is Rene, Jones, Rask, and Markstrom. So, that's not bad at all.
Yeah,
pretty good.
In some good company there.
Yeah. 939 save percentage for Dell as well, which is just an incredible stat. First is Quick, though. He's 9. I think he's first with just a slightly better save percentage than Dell. Finishing off hockey, I've got a few items, and I want to talk a little football.
Okay.
All righty. The NHL Board of Governors meeting in Palm Beach. We all know what happened there. There was the announcement, you've covered it well in your videos, about Seattle looking like they're next in line for a team at a cost of $650 million. Now, one thing that I wasn't aware of until I read a little bit in The Athletic this morning in a column by Pierre Lebrun, $650 million is going to be the price for Seattle, whether they expand or buy and move a team there.
Really?
It won't be cheaper for them to do a relocation instead.
I thought relocation should be cheaper.
In the past, it has been. But relocation will work this way from now on. Let's hypothetically talk Arizona. In the event that the Arizona or Phoenix or whatever they are, the Coyotes decide to leave Arizona, the National Hockey League will purchase the team and sell it to Seattle for $650 million.
Wait, what if the buddy in Texas, who is just about the Carolina Hurricanes, is still the owner and wants to move the team in 2024 to Quebec City?
Well, I think if he's already the owner, I think he can do what he wants.
So he doesn't have to pay the relocation fee?
Well, I wouldn't even call it a relocation fee, but the NHL, when a team changes hands, which it would in the case of...
So if the Arizona Coyotes owner sells the team to the NHL, the league pays him $650 million?
I don't know what the league pays him. They pay him whatever they think he's worth or the team's worth, and then they will sell it to Seattle for $650 million.
They sure as hell better buy it for the same price they're selling it for, or that's some sleazy business.
Well, if the NHL's in charge as to who gets to buy and sell stuff, that's how it works. That's what it does. Is it takes the relocation option almost off the table as the more economical option.
I understand. I understand the point. What they're trying to do, but.
And if you're a fan in Quebec City, you're not happy.
Quebec's not going to get a team.
I think this means Quebec's dream of having an NHL team is effectively dead.
Unless the Canadian dollar gets better, which it's not going to be, according to the projections in the next 10 years. So.
Yeah. So that's a serious alteration of the understanding that I had after reading Pierre's column this morning in The Athletic. Another interesting discussion point I read about this morning was what's going to happen with the next World Cup.
Right, because it was the new CBA talks are coming up, and
now the CBA could run till 2022 unless one of the two sides triggers the early
clause,
the opt-out, which would make it 2020.
Yeah.
In fact, September of 2020, which is right when the next World Cup would be.
Yeah, and they had that opt-out clause option in September 2019.
Right. So, yeah, they have to trigger it then, and then it would happen.
Which is very soon.
Yeah, that's very soon. So it may come to pass once again that the World Cup doesn't happen every 4 years, and it hasn't been really. Like the last one, the plan was always to have another one in 2020, but that may bump into this whole CBA business.
Yep.
And it may not happen after all, because who would want to run a World Cup and then run right into a lockout? It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. Ooh. So that could be it could actually be a reason why they won't trigger.
Yep.
They'll let it go. They'll get the World Cup in, and then they'll deal with it in 2022.
I think that's what's going to happen as well.
I hope so.
And then that would allow Seattle to come into the league without doing it on a lockout year.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is interesting. I didn't know about this. The NHL offered the NHLPA a 3-year extension on the existing contract. I don't know when
Which
this
would
happened.
push it to 2025.
Yes. And it would include 2 Olympics and 2 World Cups and a Ryder Cup type tournament in Europe.
Wait, 2 Olympics in 3 years?
It would include the 2020 Olympics and the 2024 Olympics, right?
And what's the Ryder Cup?
The Ryder Cup is it's an all-star continental type tournament where, in the case of golf, the Ryder Cup, or maybe it's like Davis Cup in tennis, where Canada would play the U.S. in a match, a tennis match.
Isn't that the same as the World Cup?
Similar, but not quite the same. I think it's a World Cup. I think it's all played in one geographical location, but the Davis Cup can be played in multiple locations.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
And they declined it?
They declined it because that would extend the existing escrow arrangement.
A 50-50 split.
Or 57, whatever. Yeah. So they're so against escrow that they turned down a chance to play in the Olympics, and they turned down a chance to play in 2 Olympics because they didn't want to see escrow extended 1 day longer than they've already been sucked into. So, and you did a great explanation on escrow that helped me understand it a few days ago.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen that video, I don't even remember what video it was in. The Seattle video, I think. Go watch that. I explain what escrow is.
Mm-hmm. One of the people who may be in the ownership group of Seattle is Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yep. Who was a filmmaker, I believe.
Filmmaker and TV guy, too. He's
Yep.
responsible for basically all the CSI versions over the years. He's done Top Gun, Black Hawk Down, and his new movie's coming out next month called 12 Strong.
Never heard of it.
It's about a true story, apparently, about a group of the first 12 Special Forces American soldiers that go into Afghanistan immediately after 9/11.
Okay.
And end up integrating with the Pashtun tribes in the northern part of Afghanistan, and they're the first to engage the Taliban on horseback.
Whoa.
Because they get really integrated with the locals.
Dang.
I'm looking forward to that movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, thought that was cool.
Well,
So
maybe we can watch it and do a movie review on the second channel,
that would be great.
which is called More Post to Post. You guys should subscribe if you're not subscribed.
Yeah. The IOC has said Russia cannot play in the Olympics as Russia.
Yeah, so those players or athletes would have to represent a union of no one or whatever it's called. I don't
Yeah, it'll be athletes from Russia or something like
Yeah.
that, and they would play under the Olympic flag.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the Russian national anthem wouldn't play. But of course, it would always still be Russia.
Of course it would be.
And
yeah.
Putin has said, "I'm not going to stop people from going in and playing that way."
Yeah.
So I think it's on. Frankly,
Mm.
I think Ovechkin will
And well, Ovechkin
have his choice to make.
and Malcolm both retweeted the hashtag Team Putin thing, and this was mentioned in a different podcast. But I wonder if they did that because they actually support Putin, or because they want to look like they support Putin so their families don't get murdered.
Yeah, well, it's always a good idea to be on the winning side. And Putin's announced he's going to run again for re-election. So
Why not?
Why not? He's been in charge of Russia, effectively in charge, since you were 14 years old.
Mm.
That's a while ago. That's more than half of your life ago. Final item from the world of hockey. A coach has been fired. Mike Keenan has been fired.
And the KHL?
Yes.
Really?
He was fired by the Kunlun Red Star in China.
In China, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's fired as coach. They've offered him a job in the team's office to still do development or some kind of management, but he's not the head coach anymore.
Oops.
Yep. So he's 68 years old.
Which is crazy to think about.
I know.
That doesn't even make, I don't even comprehend that.
I see him as a much younger man.
Yeah.
So I hope he's doing well over there, and I hope he does whatever he's happy with. He probably doesn't need to do this at the age of 68,
No.
but if he wants to stay involved, because prior to the Kunlun Red Star, he coached Metallurg Magnitogorsk in the KHL for a while as well, a couple of years. So, yeah. All right, so that's my hockey stuff.
All right, let's hit up some football here. American football.
If you don't have your own history of watching football and you're curious about what the game could be all about, and you want to watch a game that's going to be exciting, I would say don't bother with the NFL. Don't bother with the CFL. Don't bother with almost all of college football. Wait for that second Saturday in December and watch the Army-Navy game. There is nothing on the planet like the Army-Navy game.
There's so many like little nuances that are a part of this game that make it as special as what it is. And you explained one to me last night.
Yeah, there's a few. It's a tradition that goes back to 1890. So this was the 118th Army-Navy game. And they even play it during wartime. And it pits the academies of the two branches of the armed services in the U.S. against each other. So the Army Officers Academy at West Point and the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, both play in the college football ranks. They play other teams. It might be Army versus Clemson or Navy versus Duke. I mean, that just happens all year long. But then there's that special game. It's like a derby. Every year they play the special game, usually in Philadelphia, which is where they played yesterday. But not always. They're in Philadelphia, I think, 3 years out of every 4. And then on the 4th year, they might be in Baltimore or New Jersey or somewhere else.
Right.
They move it a bit, but not much. And yesterday, the snow was pounding in Philadelphia.
You couldn't even see the turf or the grass. They had to clear the lines. It's amazing.
Army was dressed in white.
Yeah, you couldn't see them.
You couldn't see them. Navy was dressed in blue for the Blue Angels.
Yeah, and they had a Blue Angel on their helmet, which is cool.
Blue Angel on their helmet. They did that to honor the Blue Angels this year. So even their trousers were the exact same dimensions as the striping on the Blue Angels flight suits. And the color was identical, and the crests, and to do it. And even the visor color was to match the Blue Angels pilots' visors.
That's cool.
And I love that. The Blue Angels were here in Charlottetown several years ago for an air show. And we got to hang out with the Blue Angels pilots. We had a hangar available for them. You know, we would just hang out because I was on the airport helping other planes park and being around. And they're a great bunch of guys, not only the pilots, but the servicemen, the mechanics, and the people who ran their Herc, with all their spare parts.
It's like a business that comes up. Yeah. The Hercules comes up. I think they have a name for it. It's called Fat something or whatever.
Yeah.
Fat
Albert.
It's cool. Yeah, it is called Fat Albert.
I think it's Fat Albert. Yeah. But what a great thing. So when the Navy showed up on the field yesterday with all the Blue Angel stuff, I'm like, oh man, that's so cool. Now, one thing I missed because I forgot about the game until it was a little bit too late. I tuned in and I saw the whole football game, but I didn't see the preliminary part of the football game, where all the Naval Academy cadets, or I guess Army cadets, naval midshipmen, I should make this correct, they march onto the field, in rank and file, and there's bands. There's challenges, and then there's this thing they do called the exchange of hostages, where every year there's always some people, midshipmen, that go to West Point as part of their training, and there are Army cadets that go to Annapolis as part of their training, and they train or they learn and go to college with the other branch all year, or maybe for a semester, and then when this game happens, the Navy exchanges their Army prisoners with the Army in exchange for the Navy prisoners so they can enjoy the game with their own guys.
Own side, yeah.
And then when the game is over, you play the game for the opportunity to sing second. And singing second means that the losing team has to sing their alma mater song first, and then the winning team gets to sing their alma mater song second. So that's that's how the game really ends. And it's very respectful. The players have a lot of regard for each other. These are soldiers. These are people who are going to be officers in the Navy and in the Army. And it has happened, sadly, in the past where someone has been in the Army-Navy game 1 year, graduates from the academy, and goes into action the next year, and they're gone. So it's very solemn as well, but it's full of celebration and the uniforms and all the pomp and circumstance.
And just in a football aspect, the game last night was really good, and especially the ending because it was really intense.
Yeah.
The Army was at 14-13, I believe, with 3 seconds left.
3 seconds left. Navy had a 48-yard field goal, which did go far enough, but it went a little wide left.
It was a little left heavy, and it was so close, but that sealed the deal. They missed it, and then just everyone piled onto the field. It was in all that snow. It was pretty magical. It's the kind of game that a movie could be made about, almost.
And maybe
seriously,
will be.
Yeah.
Maybe Bruckheimer's the guy for that. The most valuable player was Ahmad Bradshaw, who was quarterback for Army. It was snowing so hard that you couldn't really have an air game. You couldn't throw the ball very much.
Yeah, it was a total ground game.
Yeah, anything more than about 20 yards, you'd lose sight of the ball. It was snowing that hard, so they had to basically stay on the ground.
Yeah,
I think he scored. He threw one forward pass in the whole game, 20 yards, and it was a completion.
There's a lot of running.
And everything else, and he did the running himself. Like, that's the thing. He didn't always hand it off to a running back. He would take the ball himself. He was really the best runner on the team. He scored a touchdown in that game as quarterback, and they were amazing. It was so exciting.
Now we got to wait a year for the next one.
A year for the next Army-Navy game. Now, both teams are back in action because the Army-Navy game is just a game they always play. But they both happen to be in bowl games this year, as it turns out. Army's got a better record than Navy. I think they're like
8-3 and...
Yeah, or I think 9-3 now.
Oh, yeah, 9-3.
Army plays Virginia in the Military Bowl on the 28th of December, and 5 days before that, on a Thursday, on a Saturday, Army plays San Diego State in Texas at the Armed Forces Bowl. So they're both back in action.
Cool.
But the Army-Navy game, you got to wait a year now for the next one. But if we're still around, maybe the podcast before, I'll try to remind people to watch that. It is so cool, and it's such tradition and such history. And Navy had a 14-game winning streak until last year when Army finally beat them, and then Army beat them again. So and Army's motto is beat Navy, and Navy's motto is beat Army. You know? It's great.
It's good fun. It's fun because there's so much respect on both sides for each other and stuff. So it's a really fun game.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of spit talking going on.
I mean, these are all clean-cut people, and they like to party, but they're very, very respectful of the job they're about to go out and do on behalf of the United States and the free world.
Absolutely.
So they're great guys, and props to them. It was a great, well done game, both sides.
Felt bad for the kicker there at the end.
Oh, man, the devastation on his face. Imagine.
Yeah.
You know.
It's crazy. Hopefully, he's probably hoping they don't make a movie so they don't have to highlight his mistake there at the end. But.
And with the win, Army wins the Commander-in-Chief Trophy, which doesn't always happen. The Commander-in-Chief Trophy is handed out to Army, Navy, or Air Force. And the Air Force Academy has won it many times as well. So oftentimes the Army-Navy game is not about that trophy, but Saturday's game, it was. So they got to hand that out. First time Army's won it in 21 years.
Wow, that's huge.
There you go.
All right, well, that wraps up this podcast. Thank you guys for listening so far. We've smashed the record at 1 hour and 28 minutes.
No, is that right?
Yeah, I think
Awesome.
the previous record was 1 hour and 17. So.
Thanks for putting up with this.
Yes, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, hope you can hit the subscribe button if you're new. If you like this podcast or this video, hit the like button. If you're listening on iTunes or Google Play Music or whatever podcatcher you use, we really appreciate that. I'm not sure how many people actually actively listen just audibly and don't watch on YouTube. I'd be interested to know that, I guess.
Can I throw one thing in that I didn't throw in before?
You go. You throw it right in.
I didn't say who the Army was representing this time, because every year they pick a different theme. It was the 10th Mountain Division that fought in the Alps in World War II. Sorry about that.
Boom.
Boom. Yeah, I'd like to know that too. How many do listen? Like,
I know the numbers of downloads of the podcast, but I don't know if that's like active downloads or automatic downloads, because they have it set to automatically download when the podcast releases. Like, I think Jason listens to the podcast while he works, and I won't say what he does for work, but I know he listens to the podcast. He might even watch it again as well. I don't know, but
I listen to it just to hear mainly the production value and hear what it sounds like.
Okay.
I can, it's not for the content, because I kind of know what we said, but
yeah, you were here.
Yeah.
What else okay. Jason and I originally, this is breaking news. Maybe he doesn't want me to say this, but specifically what I'm about to say, what it was called. So Jason and I tried to start a YouTube channel a couple of years ago. I think it was 2015. And we've said that on the channel before, but we didn't say what it was called or what it was about. And it was called the Fish Bowl, and it never received a public video, but we had a few filmed or whatever. And the idea was that we'd have a fish bowl with rocks, or like fish tank rocks, and then he bought fish USB devices. They're right over there. It's like 10 of them or whatever, and that we would have submissions of questions or topics. So, like one might be like Star Wars, like talk about Star Wars for the next 30 minutes. So we'd take one out, we'd put it in the computer, and we wouldn't know what it was because we'd have a third party person get the topics and put them on the USB drive. So I would plug it in, it would pop up on the screen, and we'd just talk about it. We would start the show not knowing what we were going to talk about. That way could be no planning, it was just straight off the top of our heads. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out. We didn't really have enough confidence in our personalities on camera, so that was the main reason. But I like the idea, so I'd like to do that. I like to make the Fish Bowl a part of the Post to Post podcast. And the way I'm going to do that is for people to submit questions in the comment section on YouTube, on the YouTube video, like this podcast video on YouTube. Ask a question and just start it off by saying fishbowl question, and then ask the question. I'll screenshot those, and I'll screenshot the best ones. I'll put a question on each fish USB drive, put them in the bowl. It'll be sitting here next week, and then probably at the beginning or the end of the podcast, doesn't really matter. I'll take one out, put it in the computer here, and it'll pop up on the screen, and it'll be a question for you or something for us to talk about. So
cool.
Yeah, so if you guys want to leave your questions down below for that'd be cool. And yeah, like I said, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Thanks for listening or watching, whatever you're doing. We really appreciate everyone who not only listens to the podcast, but makes it this far in the podcast and listens to the end. So kudos to you, shout out. And we'll see you in podcast number 26 on December 17th, I think.
Podcast number 27.
What'd I say?
You said 26.
Oh, podcast number 27 on the 17th.
Right.
There we go. All right, catch you guys later. Adios.